Hello, and thank you for joining me for our presentation titled Mitigating the Human Factor, Raising Cybersecurity Awareness Within the Organization. First, we're going to discuss the presentation agenda. We will first discuss the theme overview. After that, we will review 3 research papers that were examined for this presentation. The first, titled What Keeps People Secure, is that they met the security team, deconstructing drivers and goals of organizational security awareness. The second research paper, titled Content, Nudges, and Incentives, a study on the effectiveness and perception of embedded phishing training. Our third paper, research for this presentation, is titled Assessing Suspicious Emails with Banner Warnings Among Blind and Low Vision Users in Realistic Settings. Once we've examined and each of these research papers, we will discuss the cross-cutting themes, followed by future considerations for the organization. Our theme overview. Organizations spend millions of dollars a year on cybersecurity tools and countless man-hours architecting and implementing hardened defenses to protect their environment and ensure confidentiality, integrity, and availability of their data and systems. While this is vital and imperative to ensuring proper cybersecurity posture and defense, many organizations often overlook or underestimate the greatest threat to their security, the human factor. What I mean by the human factor is the vulnerability that exists around the end user. Every day, the end users of an organization's environment gain access to critical systems and data. And if these users lack proper security awareness, they leave the organization's environment extremely vulnerable. The theme of this presentation centers around this crucial vulnerability. We will discuss the 3 research papers and dive into the components of security awareness, examine the effectiveness of phish training and ways to improve the prevention of these extremely common attacks, and explore a little examined or researched niche of phishing and email security, understanding the limitations of traditional training and email alerting for individuals that are either blind or visually impaired. Let's begin with examining our first research paper, titled What Keeps People Secure, is that they met the security team, deconstructing drivers and goals of organizational security awareness. This paper examines the practice of security awareness. Security awareness is the process and methodology of informing and educating end users on sound security practices and potential security threats to better safeguard organizations from their greatest vulnerability, the human factor, also known as the end user. This research paper examined multiple methods for raising security awareness. These methods included e-learning or online programs, in-person events, trainings, and lectures, direct communications such as flyers, newsletters, emails, or blogs, and simulated phishing tests, as well as various social engineering tactics, all designed to further increase security awareness among the organization's end users. Within these awareness programs, there are various topics of discussion and training. A few of these would be remote work or public internet usage, password hardening, multi-factor authentication utilization, and the utilization of password vaults. Other topics included examining the acceptable use policies and procedures within an organization and ensuring that the end user understood and adhered to these policies and procedures, as well as examining proper web browsing habits, ensuring that end users are not visiting malicious or otherwise negative content sites that could interject various malicious content into the environment. Another topic of awareness was physical security considerations, such as being aware of the dangers of flash drives and how flash drives can interject or inject malicious content if mistakenly inserted into a system, as well as tailgating and securing IT assets when not on site. While each of these topics for security awareness are important and valuable, the greatest vulnerability to organizations when it comes to the human factor is presented through phishing attacks. So one of the stronger topics for awareness programs are phishing and email security. Later in this presentation, we will dive deeper into phish testing and ways to ensure greater success when it comes to training individuals on the hazards and ramifications of phishing. This research paper also identified the typical goals of a security awareness program. Oddly enough, the goals of a security awareness program generally are not associated with improving the overall security posture of the organization or the end users within the organization, but more aligned with just simply participating in the awareness program itself. Awareness, not security posture improvement, is the typical goal identified in this research paper. If 10% or more read the content and reacted in some way, it was considered a success, according to this research. A positive attitude towards security was also considered a success. One of the strengths that I found in this paper is that it recommended measurements for better success. So rather than simply wanting the end user to participate and using that as the metric, it dove a little bit deeper and made suggestions for other ways of measuring success of a security awareness program that I felt would actually improve the security posture of the organization. So, for example, increased usage of MFA or stronger passwords, measuring the usage of password management tools, or increased usage of cloud encryption tools. And finally, and more importantly, measuring phishing simulation improvements. After specific time and specific training, was the organization seeing a measurable improvement within their phish simulation testing? The second research paper that was reviewed for this presentation was titled Content, Nudges, and Incentives, a study on the effectiveness and perception of embedded phishing training. As discussed previously, phishing is a primary attack vector by hackers that wish to find entry into an organization's network or system. This paper specifically researches one of the more common themes of phish training, embedding additional or more specific training into a phish test so that when a user fails the test, they are immediately forced to complete this additional training. The purpose is to reinforce the understanding of what the end user missed in the test so they can learn immediately from their mistake. This paper researched, was this actually an effective methodology for increasing knowledge and improving results in simulated phishing testing? The research has shown that failures are not often a symptom of lack of knowledge, but rather the outcome of time constraints when completing the test. So users are on a tight timeline or rush, so immediately requiring additional training is not effective, and this further frustrates the end user. As this paper discussed, the lower the opinion an end user has about cybersecurity training, the less attention they will pay to the training, and the more adverse they will be to retaining the information. So requiring immediate training after a failure showed to be actually counterproductive and simply increased the frustration and drove down knowledge retention. One of the strengths of this research paper that I found was that it provided potential improvements for phish training. For example, in the event of a failure, yes, it was important to require additional training. However, extending the time frame for which this training had to be completed showed to be an improvement overall. As discussed earlier, oftentimes it was not a lack of knowledge necessarily, but simply being rushed that caused some users to fail phish tests. So giving them extended time so that they can focus on the additional training proved to be an improvement. Another improvement option was providing periodic reminders throughout the month as a knowledge refresher, and also offering rewards for success to reinforce good habits and thorough understanding. I really appreciated the reward suggestion and thought it was a creative, incentivizing tool to encourage self-study and for users to pay closer attention to their email habits. I think this will be a strong improvement when considering developing our organization's security awareness and phish training practices. A good example would be if a user were to successfully pass 4 or 5 simulated phishing tests within a specific time frame, they could receive an extra day of PTO. It wouldn't cost the company any extra money and would be a great incentivizer for end users to pay attention to their email and quickly and effectively identify potential phishing risks. The final research paper that was reviewed for this presentation was titled Assessing Suspicious Emails with Banner Warnings Among Blind and Low Vision Users in Realistic Settings. This research paper analyzes the effectiveness of standard banner warnings and other email tools used to identify and assess suspicious emails among blind and visually impaired individuals. Often, when organizations employ various tools and tactics for preventing phishing and other email-related attacks, these methods are designed and created with visual indicators to grab the attention of the end user. What most organizations fail to consider is the effectiveness of these methods among individuals that are low vision or vision impaired. I thought this was a very insightful and important aspect to our organization, and it would be important for our organization to factor in as we strategize in improving our security awareness programs, and more specifically in training our employees to better identify suspicious emails. Oftentimes, the blind or low vision end users are left to fend for themselves and often miss warnings altogether because they're confusing or lack relevant context. Warnings and indicators are often considered narrow sense, meaning that they provide access to warnings via text without providing any additional context that's relevant to the risk. This research paper examined 3 common email banners and their effectiveness with BLV users. The 3 different banners that were examined were the Gmail phishing banner, the Gmail spam banner, and the Outlook junk banner. Each of these were considered narrow sense and were confusing to the end user. And oftentimes, the end user had a hard time determining whether the banner was a part of the email header or was something different. The Gmail spam banner, for example, received feedback that the report not spam button was confusing, and the Outlook junk banner appears similar to the subject line, so it was very easily missed, or was too cumbersome and confusing to be effective. One of the strengths of this paper was that it provided recommendations for improvement. A few of these recommendations included incorporating a feature that allows BLV members to learn the why. Why was this particular email flagged as either spam or phishing? To help better understand what they should do with the email once they've received the banner. Another great improvement was providing a ringtone or a bell before and after the suspicious email warning or banner to help the BLV user truly understand that it was a banner and not simply a part of the email header or the subject line. Also, including comprehensive text that convey the risk level of marked evals was also a consideration for improvement. And finally, for individuals who are either low vision or colorblind, providing different shapes and colors that were more contrasting would make it easier for them to identify and understand the banners. Now that we've reviewed each of the 3 research papers considered for this demonstration, I wanted to go through and discuss the cross-cutting theme. The purpose of this discussion was to review research around the effectiveness of security awareness and phish testing, and to identify opportunities to make improvements within our own programs. The lofty goal here is to increase defenses against the consistently increasing dangers posed by our greatest threat, the end user. We started with a broad view of reviewing the effectiveness of security awareness programs as a whole, and then narrowed down to the greatest threat of phishing and the effectiveness of phish testing. And finally, we focused on the rare but important aspect of considering the effectiveness of awareness tools that typically employ visual stimulators and recognition techniques on those with visual impairments. I think it was an important consideration for our organization because it reminds us to consider the uniqueness of our end user population when designing training programs to ensure that we include and employ tools and techniques that are effective for all of our end users and not just specific subgroups. For future considerations, I think it's important that we incorporate improvement suggestions for security awareness and phishing testing in our programs, such as requiring MFA and strong passwords in the event of a failure of a phish test to require additional training, but at a later time. Also, providing periodic reminders throughout the month as knowledge refreshers, or offering rewards for success to reinforce good habits and thorough understanding. And finally, measuring success based on reductions in risky or negative behaviors rather than simply attending or participating in the security awareness and phish training testing. Thank you for your time today, and I hope that you found this presentation to be useful and helpful to our organization.